Hey, thanks for tuning in today. I'm so excited to have Bruce Outridge with Hannah and I here on X to Z podcast. Um, Bruce is a industry friend of mine, and super excited, Bruce, to have you on. Just kind of as a little intro to you, let me tell you what I know about you. You can straighten me out and give a little a profile to what it is that you do and how you make a living. Uh, Bruce is a media entrepreneur. He has a variety of things that he's involved in, probably in my circle at least, best known for a Lead Pedal podcast and coming out to events and doing podcasts at different sites. Bruce, I'm sure, will be at Truck World next week from when we're recording. I don't know when this is going to be published, so you probably saw him last week at
This will come out. This will come out Thursday morning. This will come out the morning of Truck World. Come see us. We're here right now.
Come see us at booth. What booth are we at Truck World, Hannah?
The big one with the Better Together Group and Revolution stuff.
That's right. There's a big sign. Come on and see us. We're in the recruiting pavilion. Bruce will be all over the program.
We're at booth 3416. We actually have a booth this year again, so we'll be at booth 3416.
Come on. Are you stuck out in the hallway again, or where are you at?
No, they've moved me into hall 3, and I think I'm in the middle. There's 2 aisles on either side from the map. I'm right by where IMVR and DriveWise are, so I think I'm right across from them. So.
Oh, good for you. Good for you. Well, we're looking forward to being there. It's going to be a great time. Always a great time to see people. But Bruce started his career in business and then transitioned into transportation and trucking. He was a driver for 25 years, worked as an owner-operator for a time, sometimes as a company driver, managed a fleet, worked as a fleet supervisor. Bruce, tell us a little bit about what you're doing today and how you keep the wolf from the door, as we say.
Well, today it's all about media. Thanks for having me on the show, guys. It's been absolutely awesome to be on here. Today it's all media. My wife and I have 3 different businesses under the Outridge Enterprises umbrella. So she does English-French translation. I have an art business. Some of you know I'm also a professional cartoonist. And then I also have this media business, which is podcast, radio station. There's a television show, which is kind of in the middle. Hannah's been on it. There's lots of stuff going on. We make our money in a variety of ways, from events to sponsorships to advertising. I still love trucking after 40 years. I still love this industry. It's been the best industry and it's great for anybody because I dropped out of high school at 17. So there's a whole story that goes in behind that.
That's so cool. There's so much opportunity for people to make a living in trucking and in transportation and in the ancillary fields around it. That's obviously where we are. I've told the story 1,000 times about my father-in-law putting me in a truck when I was 19 years old and trying to get me to back it up. And I was like cockeyed and all screwed up in the driveway in like 6 minutes. And then he had his 10-year-old son fix it for me just to humble me. But that was more about him putting a young man who was in love with his daughter in place than it was about my driving skills, I think.
That's funny.
But there's a lot about a lot, but what about what? I'm not quite sure, but that story gets better every time I hear it. Now with a son-in-law that you have, that story gets even better because I'm like...
Well, just to put it in context, I don't want to get off on a side note, but Instructor of the Year, Roland Wynn, I interviewed him the other day, and his first marriage, he was a comedian, and the father of the bride was a truck driver and said, "You're going to get a real job now." Put him in the truck, and that's how he got it too. So very similar story.
And now he's Trainer of the Year. I bet that guy gives great training.
Instructor of the Year. That's right. Yeah, he used to be a comedian apparently. So.
That's so funny because when I was
meet him and have him on sometime.
For sure. Rather than saying you can't date a truck driver, it was like you can't date a fireman, you can't date a police officer, and you definitely can't date anybody from the Army. These were my 3 no-goes. And it was for safety purposes, which I appreciate now, but I love that.
I think in Roland's case, it's from a father perspective is you're going to marry somebody with a real job. And back in the day, comedians were not probably a real job, I'm sure, at that level. So.
Yeah, well, there's lots of stories about starving artists, but you're obviously not starving, Bruce. You spend every January in Barbados. Something's going well for you. But, how did you get into trucking? How did that come together for you?
like I said, I dropped out of school. I hated school. I've been drawing since I was a kid, so the drawing thing was going on since I was 10. But I just never did well in school. 50% across the board. I got 85 one year because I really liked, but they never taught you to draw. I still hate paper mache to this day. And so I told my dad after missing 37 classes one year, I'm having a garage party. I'm fixing my car. And I said, Dad, I really am not into this school thing. I've always worked though. I always worked after school or whatever. I said, I need to try something else. This is not working. And of course, my dad is from this. Now I'm 60. So, go back to the 70s now, late 70s when this is happening. And my dad said, that's fine. Your rent is due next week. I suggest you go get a job. You're not allowed to stay in this house from 8 until 5. And so you got to go out. So for the first week, he dropped me off at a coffee shop on his way to work and said, I could pick you up on the way back, but you don't actually are not allowed in the house. And after a while, you go, I got a job doing encyclopedias. I got the job. I never went back. I realized that was not for me. And then I found a job. I started at a moving company, just humping furniture. That's how I got into it. And then I said, hey, that guy's lifting less, making more, and driving the truck, and he's the boss. So I got my D license, and then a couple years later, I got my A license, and I went right into business fairly quickly. In my 20s, I partnered with a guy. We bought a truck together, which is my basic 2 years of entrepreneurship back then, which I wouldn't suggest for anybody, but he's the one who actually taught me to drive. So it was a different story.
Oh, that sounds like a great experience. So somebody you partnered with ended up teaching you how to drive, and that really helped you get going.
Yeah, and it's funny that I back when I sold out, I realized that we weren't going to make it. We thought we were in the moving industry, and we were both movers, so we thought 2 people on the truck. We don't have to hire anybody. We can team drive. We didn't realize that, and he's maybe a couple years older than me. We didn't realize 2 guys sitting on a beach in Fort Lauderdale waiting for a load drinks way more and eats more than you'll ever, So the expenses were not cheap doing it that way, and we realized we weren't going to make it as a partnership on this old truck. That his dad was a truck driver, so I sold him my half, if you will. I took out my loss there, and he went on, and I'm still looking for him this day. He married a girl and moved to the States, and I have not seen him in like 40 years, and I would love to see him just to say thank you, because he taught me so much that I still remember and use today. So
that's amazing. And then what was your next job after that, Bruce? Where did you go from there?
I was in the moving industry for probably about 7 years, 8 years. And then back then, it's different now because there's trade shows and stuff. But back then, movers basically shut off their truck from November to March. You did not even roll. You went and you just went on vacation. So I realized that I was never going to get a summer off, and I was never going to have a winter job, by the way. So I moved to the freight side of it. I got a job on a freight where it was just more steady work, basically starting at the bottom again. You got to think I was 17, 18, I got my D license, 20, I got my tractor trailer license, phoning people up when you're 24 and 25 saying, oh, I've already got 7 years experience, and I've done this, and they're like, no, you're lying to me. So I actually had a hard time getting into the industry at that 25 mark because of the insurance regulations back then.
Sure, that makes sense. And isn't insurance the roadblock for so many people again today?
Yeah. They need to do something. They need to get those 18-year-olds out there on the road, get started.
Well, interesting. I was just seeing, and I would love your perspective on this. Just saw something about Alberta is moving towards a Red Seal certification for drivers. And I don't know if you saw that on LinkedIn last week, but there was an announcement out of Alberta. And I just think that that's such a great opportunity for the professionalism of trucking, for creating a pathway that makes the insurance companies feel comfortable. They're talking about a graduated license, a D, and then local AZ work, and then highway work. Like you kind of have to progress through the whole thing. And I just love that concept.
Yeah, I agree. I haven't seen that particular notice yet, but I'm about 2 or 3 days behind social media all the time. I post every day, and then I'm like, my wife said, "Did you see it on Facebook?" That was 2 days ago. Right. So anyway, I will get there. But I have been talking about that for a long time. I think that's going to change our industry if we can get to that, because not only for the insurance side, but for you guys are employers. You hire drivers. Would it make it more comfortable for you to be able to see all of the stuff they've done, be able to verify it? They're going to look better than everybody else in the pack that's trying to get a job because they've gone through all of those steps, and it's going to just make them more attractive to. And if you think about it, it's the way we used to do it. nobody other than the farm kids, nobody really got hired and drove a tractor trailer down the road when they were 12 or 15. I did that graduation where a couple years of straight truck, and then the moving company was really good because we were local drivers, but they would share, if you got a load to Montreal, someone moving to Montreal or Ottawa, they would share that amongst the drivers. So I would have to hire my team. I would have to pay my fuel, and I could negotiate, and I would negotiate. I didn't have to pay for the truck, but it was kind of like owner operator for that trip only. And you learned how to negotiate with the guys. You learned how to manage, if I want to, and for us, for drivers, we might make $200 more than if we worked local that day for those 2 days. So, it was just enough incentive to say, I want that trip. But we learned a lot about owner operators, and, you're not going to pay someone to sleep in the seat for 5 hours. How do you manage that? So you promise meals, whatever, and whatever it is, maybe give them a bit more per hour to be willing to go with you and learn the ropes. That way, the moving industry, I tell everybody, it is the best way to learn customer service, trucking, trip planning, all of those things that go into the trucking industry.
Wow, that's really interesting. And I think that the moving industry is changing a lot. There used to be a lot of Billy Bob and his cousin and a truck, and more you're looking at larger groups. Even Canada Cartage recently bought a moving company.
Moving, most people don't. Moving is the highest paid trucking thing that you can do. They make the most money. So before people, the problem is that you have to lift stuff. No, everybody's afraid of the work. This is the problem. Nobody wants to lift anything. But you look at a guy who's been driving an owner-operator for 30, 40 years, they make a killing, and they do really well because you're paid very well to do that work. It's just there's a lot of waiting around. You got to wait for people to, get the house keys or whatever. You have to wait but the ones who have it to a science are making big money. It's probably it's best part of our industry to make money, but there's a lot of work. There's packing. Nobody wants to move, so people shy away from that.
Yeah. Well, and you can imagine the high stress that the owners are in. Hannah, you probably relate with this a little bit.
I'm moving literally this afternoon, so I very, very much relate to that at the moment. But you're right, moving companies, that's really interesting because as like a staffing agency, moving companies aren't on our repertoire. That's not something that we necessarily want to dive into because it's got some cause for insurance and just danger of being hurt. But I've never thought about the return on that. That's really interesting.
What about a funnel though? You bring somebody onto your team. You don't bring on the drivers necessarily. You bring on the helpers. The helpers now you supply them to whatever moving company, and they learn the driving through that moving company. And now there's a chain going through that's going to keep that person employed. Even things like leaving the TV on the front of the truck until you get the person to sign the check. I learned that in moving. I did not learn that anywhere else other than you tell the guy, don't bring that TV off till they've signed the check. You learn how to get paid. Who else teaches you that? Nobody teaches you that. Moving company does.
Do you think that there's a shelf life on it though? Because it is so hard, because it is heavy lifting, it is long hours, it's different, it's a little challenging.
It's a bit of a young person's game.
Yeah, do you think it has more than other lines?
Well, yes and no. Yes, that the earlier you get in, the easier it is. But I can tell you, anybody that first of all, you're going to save on a gym membership, so you're going to save some money right there. But you do not have to. Once you do it, like people now go, oh, I'm going to move a house, and as you said, Hannah, it's like stressful, and oh my gosh, we got to move all this stuff. I used to move 2 houses a day. You don't think about it. You go in, you pick up the thing, make sure there better not be empty hands either way, right? I used to give crap to my team. If I see you not walking either in with the box or in with the box, you're in trouble. So once you get used to it, it actually is not as hard work. And then if you think of the driver is packing the trailer. We're not necessarily in and out of the house. That's why we're hiring the younger guys. So the driver that's with his wife are probably a good team where the wife is packing the house. They pack the house together if it's a corporate move. The driver loads it, but they hire 2 guys to lift all that stuff out of the house and bring it to the truck. Then they go on their way and they hire 2 guys at the other end. So they're not really lifting as much as you want. And but if you've done this for 20, 30 years, you don't even think about it anymore. You just throw the box on. Trust me, I know guys who are in their 50s and 60s that are still moving and doing what they do. So but they've been doing it a long time. If you start at 40 and 50 years, it's going to hurt more. But a lot of times if you go get some help, sometimes that's who's looking for the work. They don't have a license. They don't have any career. They're getting odd jobs, and moving's one of them this day. We used to have a lot of firemen were our second, because they get 3 days off. They would come and work
They're
at the
fit
moving
and ready to go. Bruce, what compare the workload of a mover, a truck driver that's working at a moving company, to a guy who's doing flatbed and having to throw chains and like to straps and such. What's the workload like? How heavy is it comparatively?
I think the workload is about the same. If you've ever thrown straps, and again, depending on what you're hauling, if you can walk up on your coil and chain it like that, it's not too bad. But if you've ever thrown a strap across a big, large, bundle of wood or something like that, it is not easy. It's a technique in itself, and I bet you how many drivers have you heard, Dave, that said they want to run flatbed because it keeps them fit? I've heard that. I don't know, for 40, 60 years, I've heard that. They're doing it as a gym exercise. They don't want to be in a van. It gets them exercise. Same thing with moving. It's the same amount of work. You're going to run about half the miles that you would of a normal truck. So a moving company is going to run about half the miles because there is a lot of waiting time, but you're compensated in a way. Most of them are paid by percentage, and you're compensated for that waiting time. So it's not a big deal.
Interesting. My father-in-law drove flatbed for years, pre-finished millwork out of Middleton, Wisconsin, and then Wick Buildings out of Wisconsin, and he always drove flatbed. He loved it. It was, if he had to put the tarps on, he'd moan about it a little bit, but he likes to moan, so that kind of worked out for him. But
I'm totally opposite. I hate flatbed. I hated flatbed. I've done a lot of it, but I hate it. I prefer van refrigerated work. I've always been in hazmat, so I've always liked that. I can get a flatbed load down, but I don't love it. But there's guys who will not open doors. Like the flatbed is all they do, like you're saying, right?
So tell me about your hazmat experience. What was that like for you? That's carrying around some pretty crazy stuff.
Yeah, I worked for, as you probably know, hazardous material today, most people would think of it as just going from point A to point B, which I did for some common carriers that I worked for. The last 13 years of my career, it was for a chemical company. So once we got to the site, we were dressing in rubber, hooking up hoses, hooking up pumps, actually pumping chemical out to the container or whatever container was on site. So it was a different level. The people that do well at hazmat are people who are detail oriented, that are not afraid to take a few moments to check something and actually follow the rules, and that's not the place to be a cowboy. And I actually like that. If you think about it, it's better money for most drivers. They don't push you the way they do someone with auto parts. They want you to slow down. They want you to take your time. They want you to make sure that there's no mess. So it's actually a slower pace of trucking. I call it executive trucking. We had hotel rooms and meal allowance and like executive trucking today. We had sleepers, but we never slept in them. We slept in hotels. But they want you rested. They want you in uniforms. They want you looking good. And that is not for the person who wants to go and be wild and go around the scales. Like, that's not the person they're looking for. They're looking for someone who wants to be. So I tell drivers all the time, your appearance and how you treat other people and how you treat receivers and all that all plays a part in the kind of work that you do. But hazmat is where I would go if someone wants to really make money. Tanker jobs and all that is where I would go.
What kind of premium do you think you made in the years that you worked as a percentage? Like you over a van guy, over a flatbed guy?
We were probably, I'm going to say we were probably 25% more. Wow. So the last year, all of our team, we had a small team here in our Burlington's, the chemical company, but we had a small team. So let's say there's 10 trucks. We were all at pretty well six figures, all of us. We all had 20 plus years experience, but we were all at six figures. And when I think of go 13 years before that, my common carrier, I was probably at about 50 $50,000, which was good money back then.
Sure.
I'm happy with it, but that just shows you. But you're paid for different things. You're not paid for trucking. Like that's the thing. You're not. Right. You got to. You're paid for the danger of the job. You're paid to take care of yourself. You're paid to take care of the customer. We were customer service. We were basically like a sales agent, sure. That's what we were. Trucking was not, and it's for a private carrier, which is a lot different than running for a corporate for a hire carrier. They don't care about the truck; they care about the customer experience at the other end. For us, that was chemicals. For some, it's pop, Coca-Cola, whatever, right? Yeah. So for us, they don't want you coming in, flying in there. We were in boiler rooms. We weren't in docks. We were in some pretty tight places. Trucks had to be kept clean, washed every week. It's a great job for a guy like me. I love that stuff. But for people who don't like cleaning or washing or, following the rules or any of that stuff, that's not the job for you, right?
Yeah. Yeah. You need to be pretty buttoned up. You need to be pretty organized. You got to fly straight. One of the things I talk with people about is just fly straight. Just do the right things. Yep. Just, it's hard, but if you run a clean life, there's lots of things you don't have to worry about. And when you're running a clean truck and you're following the rules and you're abiding by all the safety, you're doing a proper pre and post, you're running on the right speed limit and right hours of service and all of that, you can do really well. It's when you want to be a cowboy that really things get messy.
Bruce, you had mentioned the right personality traits of that driver. What do you think the right personality traits of an average driver are? Like if someone's sitting at home right now and they're like, I wonder if transportation is for me. Now, everybody's different. Every role is so different. But on average, what's the makeup of somebody who would, on average, be good at that, in your opinion?
I was that person that at 16 years old, I was at the drive, on my birthday, Mom, take me to the driver's license. I need to get my license today. So driving was always, back in the day, my dad used to put me on his lap. I've learned, I love driving, and I still love driving today. I think I think to answer your question, people are looking at it as a job today. That's the problem. We're promoting it as a job. Come get a job, come work X number of hours, local. And then the other people are promoting it as a lifestyle, which it is, but nobody's just promoting it. Is this what you want? I never cared about the money. I still don't care. I love driving. I love the trucks. I shine the trucks because I like shiny trucks, not because anybody told me to shine the truck. I'm a clean freak to this day. Ask my wife. It drives her nuts. So I've always been that kind of a person. I like the open road. I like doing different things and seeing different people. I'm like that commercial without saying the commercial. I just enjoy the trucks. I never went to any of the companies and said, how much do you pay me? I was driving trucks when we were paid $10 an hour, so I didn't worry about that. But even the city trucks, I kept very clean. And that's what got me noticed. People now are looking for jobs. To be honest with you, I've never really looked for a job, maybe once or twice. Even the chemical company, I never looked for a job. I used to deliver to the chemical company from the other carrier I was working for. And I always kept my truck clean, and I always, would talk with the shipper and receiver. And if they need a trailer moved out because they only had 1 or 2 docks, I would go move the trailer for them. I just did what I did, but they were our main client. And after a while, when they were put on their own trucks, they just said, "Hey, Bruce, are you interested?" And I didn't even apply. I didn't, and I was there 13 years. People notice what you do. And this is my big beef with people today that are trucking, that, are driving around and they don't really care how they look, and they don't care how they present themselves, and they don't care how they talk to people. And even the waitress in the truck stop deserves a little bit of, comfort and somebody to just treat them nicely. And I see a lot of people who they just don't do anything about it, and they wonder why they're not getting any opportunities. I don't know if you guys have heard my presentations over time. Maybe Dave, you have. I've always talked about the 20% of a fleet, and this is common to most fleets, that when you come out of a driving school and you get a job, you come in at the bottom You come in at the top, so there's 20% of the bottom, 60% in the middle, and 20% of the top. You come in at the top of that 20% of the bottom. All right. How you work depends on which way you go. If you don't work well, you're at that bottom 20%. You're going to be looking for a job. Those are the guys who are every 6 months. Yeah, I'm out of work again. I'm out of work again. If you do well, you go up into the middle 60%, which are good, hardworking people. They may not be polishing trucks, but they're hardworking. They're on time. They're doing. And then you're going to have the 20% at the top. Most people call them brown nosers. They're not brown nosers, but I do have a brown nose. That's okay. But we're the ones who love polishing our trucks. We're the ones who would spend our own money on a company truck to put chrome mud flap weight. That's the people we are. Okay. But we are also the ones that, there's a parade going on. NASCAR needs a driver. That's where they're picking it from. They're not picking it from the bottom 20%. They're not picking it from the 60% who won't wash their truck, even though they're good drivers. They're the top 20% who are on time, looking decent, keeping their license safe, keeping their hours of service, all those things. Those are the ones that are getting the opportunity. And it's really not hard in the trucking industry in 2024, which is unbelievable to me, to stand out from the rest of the people on your team by just wearing a golf shirt, being on time, washing your truck. It's really not rocket science. It's not like you have to have a degree in mechanical engineering. You just have to take care of the truck. Really, that's it.
It's so true, Bruce. If you just give a care, if you just give a bleep, you can stand out from the rest. We talk a lot about showing up and giving your best efforts. And I was just talking with my staff yesterday about, actually, I'm sorry. I was interviewing a guy yesterday for a job with us. And he's like, well, tell me about your culture. I said, well, it's in the name, like better together. We're about teams. But if you put better in your name, you can't be the same.
That's
you
right.
can't be less than. You actually have to be better. And so but in trucking and in the agency world, it's not hard to stand apart. It's not hard to be better than other people. You just have to, what's the old Survivor saying? Outwork, outwit, outlast. That's all it takes. It's just show up and work harder.
Yeah. Even in the day when I was running, if the company might sell you a golf shirt or give you one shirt, I'd buy a couple extra. I always wore company stuff. Even if you're wearing jeans, you can look good in jeans. Buy a company coat. When you go into a shipper, you should look like the person, the company you're there to represent. If you look like you're some guy off the street, how you all the toilet stuff. I know that's a big problem. How many people won't let them in the building? Well, if you look like you're from the street, they don't know that you're the truck driver out there. And if that's the way you present yourself in the shipping office, what does your truck look like? And if I put my freight on your truck, is it going to get there if that's how you're maintaining your truck? And are you going to be there on time? Look, it just goes down the row, right? It's one thing after the other. So you start at the beginning, you take care of you. If you're not working for a company that wants to take care of the truck or help with maintenance or any of that stuff, then move to a company that's interested in that. There are companies that are really interested in making sure that their drivers, but once you get a company that sees that's the way you are, and I'm not talking about doing it just to kind of be better than the other drivers, like our fleet, we generally had guys who were really that's their thing, and it gets to the point where you're never driving an old truck. The owner's taking you to the dealership saying, "Here's your next Kenworth, Bruce," and I go, "I like this one." No, we're going to give that to someone else. We're going to give you. They don't want to spend $200,000 and give it to someone who's not going to take care of it, right? So that is the secret there.
Of course, if you want the latest, greatest, best equipment, treat it better than other people, and it'll always float up to you.
Yeah, for sure.
That's great. So, Bruce, thank you so much for that. That was really interesting and a really good conversation. One of the questions I wanted to ask you today, though, was, you've got a lot of years behind the wheel, and what my father-in-law always used to tell me, the guys on the road, the four-wheelers, the motorcyclists, they just have no idea what's going on. They're just oblivious. So what are and so let me just take away the first two easy answers from you, because everyone I've asked this question to has said the same thing. Give them space. Like watch. So aside from Don't cut me off. Like, don't jump in front of me within, a truck length. Give me space, because you're, as a professional driver, you're trying to give space to the person that's in front of you so that you have time to stop and stay out of your blind spots. Besides those two elementary things that everyone should fundamentally understand, but everyone abuses, what's the next thing that every four wheeler should know?
The one that I've been harping on forever since the beginning of time is, why are we not teaching people who are getting their license in a car about trucks? Why is there not a training component in there, a day of class, whatever it might be? I'm not saying they have to learn to drive a tractor trailer, but they should understand what's going on around them, why they're. How many people that drive a car know that the trucks are not allowed in the left lane of a 3-lane highway? Probably very few, other than people who might be part of the industry. My wife has learned a lot just being married to me for 23 years. She's like, I didn't know you can do all of that stuff. So it's an education thing that needs to start at the beginning. I took driver's ed back when there was just a car. We didn't have so many schools when I got my truck license, so I did learn off somebody who had been driving for a while, but he came from a line of truck drivers, and I felt I had fairly good training. And then our companies over the years have always given us refresher training, even if it's in a car or whatever. So we've always had that. But I think it's something that should be on the test from day one. Like, people do not understand about other vehicles, and we're making it simpler for them. You put Fast and the Furious on Saturday night, and you can see on Sundays that there's all these race guys around town, because they all watch that and they go, okay, let's go do that. That's what they want to do. And unfortunately, we're making cars where you don't have to think about how to drive. You just press the button, it backs up for you. You can go to sleep and it'll drive for you. Like, we're making it so people don't even have to learn to drive. There's going to be a point where they can't do that anymore. And I think we need to go a little back old school, teach them how to drive. Then when you have all those tools, you can use them to your benefit, as opposed to using them as your only crutch in how to parallel park, right?
I like that.
Oh my gosh, driving is going to be a lost art like cursive writing. I've never thought about that before.
Sorry.
That's really startling when you think about it. When you stop training, when you give people aids that help them do foundational things, you steal from them the opportunity to know how to do it independently.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm against. I'm not going to get this into artificial intelligence, but I am one of the last people. I'm watching it, but I will not be using it. To me, it's going to steal a lot of creativity, and there's a lot of people that are going to be in trouble once this gets going.
Well, as an artist, I'm sure that that's really foundational to your way of thinking, and that makes sense to me. And it's surprising how much artistic work AI is being able to do. How you're able to generate. You guys both do a lot of media work. How you can submit your media to AI and let it cut and slice it for you. And I was talking to one of my nephews who does a fair bit of YouTube work, and he did a whole series where all of the animations were like full cartoon active animations were done by AI. He told them what it was, and they created the story to go around it, which is just startling to me.
All of my Barbie were created like that through AI. Just all of the ones that I've been posting are just like, and you can't use. It's funny because you can't use specific stuff like Barbie or like Better Together group. Like, AI wouldn't be able to pull that. But if you were like, create a doll with really long legs and like this kind of color hair and like this color, like, it can kind of, it's wild. We'll be really interested to see how that transitions in the transportation industry. Do you think that's going to affect the transportation industry at large more first, or like the average four-wheeler's car? Because it's already so ingrained in both, in a sense. Do you think they're like?
I think the cars first, because they're trying to do anything for people to parallel park or drive, and they're even promoting that. I mean, they could stop a lot of this just by stopping having commercials that show you going down a street by yourself, with no hands and all that. I mean, just the commercials alone. But I know that's how they're getting people to get their cars. So I think some of that, but yeah, they're gonna do whatever the most public, the main public that wants, which is, you can see it now, right? The Teslas and not, parallel parking. That's the thing that people have trouble with, backing up, the cameras. Trust me, I live in a seniors building here. I watch people back up all day, and it's better than YouTube. But we'll leave that alone. But and most of them are looking at their front camera when they're backing up. I go, shouldn't you be backing? Anyway. So I think it's going to go to the cars first. It is going to come to the trucks, and I've been telling people for a long time, because our podcast is based on business and careers. If you are not specializing, if you are not trying to find a way to make you, and when I say you, I mean your brand, something that's going to be viable for the future, you are in real trouble. These people who think, auto parts, UPS, all those are great jobs right now. They're the first ones to go, my friends. Those ones, the van trailers, all that's going to be the first stuff to go when we get to a point where we need to go. Flatbed, tanker, that's going to be the last stuff to go. Where will it be? I think you'll see a lot of it more in the office operations part of dispatching and stuff like that. You're going to see a lot more of that automation go in there to help people. But look at it with the drivers right now, right? They've got the GPS on their phone. Half of them don't even know where they're going. They're just driving down the road. They don't even know where the end point is until it tells them to turn right. I still teach map reading. That's where we are, right? But I think you need to know the skills. There's nothing wrong with technology. I use it every day, but you need to know the skills so you know how to use that technology and know whether it's correct for you or not. There's a lot of people that are getting into trouble because they don't know the skill. They're following the technology, and the technology, even though it's fairly good, can still put you the wrong place, right? And just look at any social media where a truck has crashed into the back of somebody else in a snowstorm. Hey, it's because you weren't communicating. How did you not know there was a snowstorm? Did you not look at other trucks? Did you not hear anybody on the CB saying, hey, you know what, there's a 70 car pile up ahead of you? We used to know that stuff. Nobody's communicating, so now nobody knows that. They're on their phone, they're watching a video, whatever. Hopefully they're not doing that, but they're doing whatever they're doing. And that happened. You can see it when Sirius came out. Nothing against Sirius. My wife loves it, and I like it too. But when that came out, and I still listen to local radio. And if you go to Louisville, Kentucky, in the middle of March, there is a tornado season. And if you are not listening to local radio, you are not going to hear it in Toronto, Canada, but you will hear in Louisville, Kentucky, that the tornado's heading 71 northbound at 25 miles an hour. And you better make sure you're doing 60 or you're in trouble.
Right.
That's a real report.
That's really interesting. And we, in so much of media is now targeted specifically to you and to your likes and to your location and to the things that make you feel all bubbly. Right. But it doesn't really help you. So just spare me the soapbox for just a moment. But when you're listening to other people puppet back to you your own opinions, are you getting better as a human being? Or are you just inflating your head, being like, yeah, that guy's pretty smart. He thinks exactly the same way I do. I want people around me who disagree with me and who sharpen me by making me look at things in a different way.
Yeah, that's why I got married.
So let me take that because I can hear that. But how is that any different than the hours and hours and hours that you spend on your phone on Reels on Instagram? Because Dave is a Reels guy; he loves his Reels. So that's that's the same thing.
It's one of the things it's one of the things why Reels is starting to get boring. It was great for 12 months, but then I get fed the same stuff. I see the same stuff all the time, and I want different stuff.
I guess the way I can explain it better is through podcasts. So, I'm a podcaster. I subscribe to podcasts, and people often ask me, Bruce, how do you find your podcasts? And I subscribe to very few. I probably have about 4 or 5 that are on my main playlist.
We're so privileged to know that we're amongst that group.
Yeah. You're right on top there. Right? But the reason I don't do that is because I search for podcasts based on what I'm thinking that day. So I've been listening. I listen to a lot of marketing podcasts in general. I listen to a few trucking podcasts, but I don't really listen to a lot of. And I listen to more if I'm thinking of, okay, you know, I'm paying the bills on Monday, and I'm going, boy, I need to improve my finances. If you put in finances or budget or whatever you want to put in, you'll come up with 100 podcasts of that. And I will usually pick that. And that keeps me from listening to the same person over and over every day. And to add to my wife is totally opposite of me. Our big goals are the same. We are partners in this business. We're partners in life. But holy smokes, if I say yes, she'll say no just because it's Wednesday. So that is good. That is good because I spend money. I always need a new microphone. And she will say, she handles all the bookkeeping and puts it in. And she goes, why did you go to Long and McQuaid today? And why did you've got 10 microphones. Why did you need another? Yeah, but this one's black. I like it. So it's that kind of thing, which, yeah, you know, I don't want to be around. I have no problem with constructive criticism. I don't want to be around someone who's super negative. And in social media, that's very, I mean, just the people who are spamming. Like, if I don't like your restaurant or I don't like your stuff, I just won't come back. I won't spend all day targeting you going, you know, that was silly or whatever, saying whatever they say. I don't understand that. My mind doesn't work that way. Yeah. I just will not, you know, use your service or whatever it might be. So, but if someone says, hey, Bruce, you know, your audio was off yesterday, I got no problem with that. Thank you. I'll try and fix it.
Right. You know? Yeah. I think it's important that we be open to receiving feedback from other people, that we be ready to hear alternative points of view, and that we be convicted about the things that we're convicted about. And so there's things in my life that I'm very convicted about. I'm convicted about being a hard worker. And, you know, I was talking with one of my staff yesterday about being a hard worker. And she's like, well, I like to think about being a smart worker. And I'm like, yeah. Well, I'm not trying to be a dumb worker. Okay. Of course I'm trying to be smart while I'm working hard. I don't just like, oh, I want to lift this hard thing. That's not it. I'm trying to do both. But I take great pride in that. I think that we all need people that, you know, think differently and just sharpen us and make us better as a result. I mean, it's honestly one of the greatest things about working with Hannah is because Hannah, as my daughter, has a comfort in our relationship that she doesn't have to agree with me. And so in a working setting, we'll do a morning meeting with our staff, or I'll be in a conversation with a client. And so we go, I don't know that you really wanted to say it like that, Dad. And she might say it in front of the customer. She might say, hey, Dave, like, what about this idea? And
I'm working on how I do that one specifically because, you know, you don't really do that super regularly. But yeah, we do talk about it as in like a low regard and high respect. All the respect for you in the world and the lowest regard of like whatever position you're in. Because I think that anybody in any, like, no matter who you are or where you're sitting, you need to have the ability to have other people speak into you or speak into your life in ways that you can't see it, because perspective is so different. And it's so hard to see perspective when you're so down a hole. And it's like, wait, well, let's just get another person to see and think and hear how all of this translates. But speaking of perspective, go ahead.
Sorry. Didn't mean to cut you off there. You know, that's the thing I love about my caricature business, doing events, and we won't get into that, but I have done weddings for so many different cultures, and I would just encourage people to go out and meet. If you don't know that neighbor across the street, go and say hello and meet them. And once you start meeting all of these different cultures, you will realize we are all the same, and there is a lot of good people and bad people in every culture. So it doesn't matter who it is. I do bar mitzvahs. I've done Indian weddings. I've done Filipinos. You know, whatever it is, Chinese. They're all the same. They all have a good time. They all like to dance. They all have their little ceremony, whatever it might be, and they're all fairly friendly if you're friendly to them. And I'm at Indian weddings and stuff, I'm not afraid to ask someone what happened there. I saw one where the bride wasn't even, she got married through a handshake from the groom and the father. I said, aren't you supposed to be in the room? She said they did this old old time thing. So at least she knew. But she was laughing about it, and she was educating myself. So I think we need to, and as you know, I won't get into politics, but you can see what's going on around the world. It's people are not meeting each other; they're staying in their computers, and then when they don't like something, they go out and shoot them instead of actually having a conversation like we used to have to do in the old days. So I'll leave that. I don't want to get too serious on your show.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, and you're not wrong. I think that one of the challenges with society right now is that the depersonalization is as much as a great of a conversation this is. Bruce, our relation started in person, and Hannah has some great relationships that she talks about with people that she's had for years that are entirely virtual. But there's a level that not being in real life limits you to. It can only really be so to a point superficial completely online. You have to have some connectivity in real life, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. That's why I like about when we go to Barbados. We've met a lot of our friends in Barbados that are from around the world. And we keep in, when we're not in Barbados, we all keep in touch online. And then when we go back, so we kind of have this thing. It's a mix of both worlds, and it's really nice. But you know, you've got real people. You know what what they like to do, and what you laugh with them, and you share pictures, and you keep that friendship going. So when you go back, it's like, hey, it's like your friend, you're like your family again or whatever. So it's pretty cool.
What's so important about that is technology is supposed to enhance things, not replace things. And so what you just described was you took a real relationship that was in person and you advanced it by adding the technology component to it, or you start a relationship in technology and you grow the relationship by being in person. Hannah, you're newly married. You dated Grayson from a distance for a great period of time. That was great. You really grew your relationship.
Mm-hmm.
But if you never met together in person, it'd be pretty hard to get to where you are today.
It's a shaky one. You'd be like that one I heard last night. 8 minutes is it The Bachelor or something? 8 minutes he's married.
Yeah, I think everybody is so different, right? I like to think about the concept of technology being a tool to help you do what you need to do in your everyday life. But I do think that the limitations of what that looks like are very different generationally, because I mean, and maybe not generationally, just like different people accept things differently. But to somebody else, it can be the perfect spot to meet somebody. And so it is the tool that they're using to enhance their life in a way that they can't. And that is starting and fabricating something from what is founded on technology. But then if it were to remain 100% in there, it is weird to look at that and accept that for what it is. But in a way, in my personal opinion, it is like a different sense of a world. And it is not necessarily a healthy thing. It is not necessarily the best thing for people, but I do think that it gets used as a different world. And I do think that people in next generations have things that don't cross over, but that exist 100% in technology.
That's interesting.
Yeah, but you're describing truck drivers, Hannah. That's all. Being on both sides of the truck driving, this is one of the problems we have with truck drivers many times in a fleet is they're by themselves a lot of the time. And when a policy comes down from the management and says, okay, all of you guys, no more doing this, whatever it might be, they take it as themselves. They go, what did I do? When it's probably somebody else that did it. But when you're in operations, you see a bigger scale. You don't just see the one driver, you see all the drivers, and you realize that 20% are doing this. We need to stop this, guys, because it's going to cause this problem. And a lot of times drivers don't see that. And that's one of the reasons I encourage drivers to get to know dispatch and don't just be this bubble in your truck. Get to know everybody in the operation at whole so that you understand when something happens. A lot of times it's not because of you. It's because of insurance, or what, it might be something else that's happened that's caused them to put out a certain policy, and drivers don't understand that. They see it as, oh, they're against me. We're not. We you're the reason we're here. It's just we need to do this or else we're going to have problems with this.
Well, the
And I've seen
reality
it from
is that everyone gets concerned with their perspective. And a truck driver's perspective is them in their vehicle on the roads that they drive. And the company's perspective is much broader. And they're making decisions up here that affect the guy in the truck. And he thinks it's all, that it may be finger pointing at him, or maybe finger pointing at 20 drivers somewhere else, or just national or international standards. And so that's why there's a big push on for so many different safety things, is because insurance companies know what's going on a broader scale, and they bring that focus down to the individual truck, to the individual driver, and it has real impact on people. That's a great conversation, guys. The last question that we wanted to get to Bruce on was jobs and transportation. You do a whole thing with youth, and I love seeing kind of how you try to encourage youth to step into the next phases of their life. When you're talking to youth about career choices, what do you tell them about trucking or transportation or logistics, and what should people be excited about the future in that?
I tell them to get involved. I personally, and this is just my opinion, I think everybody should be in transportation. I've never been out of work. Still now, I could not have told you 20 years ago I'd be podcasting, because there was no podcasting probably 20 years ago, but I didn't know about it. And now look at me. But I couldn't have done this without the expertise and my experience from trucking. So I thank trucking for everything that I've done. I've always made good money. Now, that doesn't mean you have to drive. As you know, there's so many different opportunities to get in. I think we focus so much on the truck that people don't see the other areas: operations, dispatch, technology, IT. Those are all part of transportation as well. And a lot of people want to see something that's sexy. They want to make the big money now. And I didn't go to university, so maybe that's why you have to make the big money. I was going down the road making 50 grand when everybody else was at university. I go, I don't know why they're in school here. Like, I don't know why they're just, but depending on the career, you sometimes have to do that. But I think just getting in wherever you can get in. I think a lot of people try to get in a higher job than what they are ready for. Just get in and learn the industry. Even if you're going to be in IT, you have to understand transportation. Or I'm sure the IT stuff does something with transportation. If you mention trucks, you don't know what you're talking about. So everything has a starting point. And for most people, it's at the bottom. I think it should be at the bottom. Look at the successful companies that are out there. Most of us started sweeping trailers, now you may not need to start that low, depending on what you've got as far as experience in education, but don't expect to be the boss tomorrow. Just get in, learn it. If you learn it, you will do so much better down the road. You will advance quickly. If you're a smart person and like we were talking about, you present yourself well and all, you will go up the ladder very quickly without having to try so hard. But most people try to get in at the top, and they're looking at money. Oh, that doesn't pay as much. Stop looking at the money. In transportation, I just tell people, stop looking at the money. Get the job. Do something that you like to do, and transportation will take you for a long time.
That's great. I really appreciate you saying that. If you find something that you like to do or are good at, and you don't posture yourself to be better than you are, don't get greedy when you're trying to get your first jobs. I was talking with this guy Zay yesterday, and I said to him, like, this isn't going to be a great paying job out of the gate. Like, there's opportunity for you to grow with us over time, but initially, you're going to have friends that are going to be making more money than you are. That's just the reality of it. But as you help us win, I'll share all the winning. I'll share the winnings with you. But we have to grow together. The challenge is often when people, and this happens to me a lot, is people come in to me and they're like, yeah, Dave, I want to work with you, but I need this level of dollars. I'm like, okay. Well, I wanted to pay this level of dollars. I'm like, no, I absolutely have to have this or I can't do it. I'm like, okay, well, right. If I give that to you, you understand, you're asking for 10% more. So right. I'm going to be expecting more than 10% more output from you than what I was expecting. They think that I was offering 50 and they got 60, and they're going to do the same job I was willing to pay 50 for. No, 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 no. If you got 60, you need to give me the 60. And that's what they missed when they negotiate so hard up front. They don't understand that I now look at them at that number, and so I need a better production out of them, and the pressure is higher, and their length of rope that they have to go along before they start to be successful is shorter, and it just has big implications. If you negotiate really well up front, I learned this the hard way. When I was 23, I got a job in as a telemarketing manager. I'd never been a telemarketing manager before, but I'd done telemarketing. And the guy was like, well, I don't know how to pay you. I was like, well, I think this would be fair. And I gave myself a good base salary, and then I gave myself bonuses on every appointment that we set, not on commission sold. And so we set a lot of appointments. His salespeople did not close the deal, and within 6 months, I was out of work because I was making good money, but they weren't selling anything. And if the business isn't successful, you're not successful.
Right. So he should have. He needs better salesmen, by the sounds of it, or better closers, I guess is how we say it. But yeah, when you're talking about the driver, I see that a lot, and I can tell you what happens when drivers are like that. It turns into entitlement. We had this. We had a team that four of us all got hired the same day, so there's no seniority. We all had 20 plus years of experience, and over time, probably about 10 years in, they're looking for a supervisor or a boss. And it created a lot of tension on the team. I'm the one who won that position, even after putting my name behind the other person. I said, no, he's the one. But he was not technology savvy, and all of our stuff. I had gone back to school when I was 40 to get my grade 12 and all that. And I was taking business English and computers and website design and all the things I'm doing today. So when they were looking at it, we both had, from a trucking standpoint, we were the same. Where we were different is I had learned technology, he had not. All of our expense accounts and all that were going technology based, from paper to technology. And so that hurt our team. I'm the youngest one. I get the word. It caused a lot of friction in the team. Sure. And it becomes entitlement because he had been driving for 40 years. I see that in places where they have a lot of long-term people who have been, I don't want to do this, or I don't want to do New York City, or I'm not doing that, because they've been there so long, that's not their thing anymore. I've seen brokers, owner-operators go broke because they won't go to a certain area. They go, I only run California. Well, there's no California freight. Okay, well, I'll sit here while you're an idiot because your truck payments still do, So I've never been that way. I've always been a team player, or tried to be. And you know what? Take what is good for you. Yeah, you do want to get the highest dollar you can, but maybe if one job's not going to pay you everything you need, is it better for you to have two jobs? I mean, in staffing, someone could work for you a few days a week and maybe work somewhere else. I don't know how all that works. I'll leave that alone. But maybe if there's not enough, or I know when I was, in trucking city work, I used to get my overtime by coming in 2 hours early, helping the warehouse crew load trucks, and then afterwards I would stay 2 hours afterwards and help unload. And I would do like my 8-hour trucking during the day. Same company. And then when I quit, they thought they were losing 2 people, but I needed that. We were making $10 an hour. That's how I had to live. I had to get some extra hours. So it depends on your personal situation, but it's not really for the employer to help. It's not my job as an employer to make sure that driver can survive. If they've got too much on their plate as far as personal expenses, they need to do something about that. Here's what, if you're paying below the industry standard, that's different. But if you're paying mainstream and that person just needs more, they got to prove it. Like you said, you better come to the table with some skills that nobody else has if you want to pay more for that. And I'm not sure everybody's got that. I don't think a lot of people think that way. It's
for sure. For sure. My mom always used to tell me, it's not how much you make, David. It's how much you spend about how much you make. So if you spend less than what you make, you'll always be a rich man. Yeah. If you spend more than what you make, you'll always be poor.
That's right.
Yeah.
And I think people just.
Yeah.
I think people just need to focus on just focus on the job. Forget the money. The money will follow. If you're good at your job, you will make good money. So I would just stay with that.
Well,
like
you know
that.
what? I think that was the name of the podcast there. Money will follow, Bruce. If you just go to work every day, the money will follow. So, Bruce, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
No problem.
How can people connect with you? How can people follow your podcast or your TV show, or how do people connect with you?
Probably the easiest way is to go to leadpedalmedia.com. That'll get you links to everything else. And just follow me on social media. I'm on all the platforms, as you know, and come say hello. Just come say hello. I love to meet everybody, you know, and I'll have my mics and stuff set up so we can do this again at Truck World.
Great.
We will see you at Truck World.
Bruce, we'll see you at Truck World. You know why you got to go to Truck World?
What's that?
You know why you have to go to Truck World?
Why?
Because everyone needs to go to Truck World. It's the place to be in the industry, and certainly next week, wouldn't miss it, not in a million worlds.
Do you have any cups? I got to get some more cups. We wore ours.
We should bring some Revolution Staffing cups, Hannah. If we got some Revolution Staffing cups that change color, I don't know if we still got any of those.
I will see.
Yeah,
we loved those. They were good ones. We gave a lot of them out, but there might be a couple hidden around the office somewhere.
We got a T-shirt for you this year, Bruce. Come get a T-shirt.
All right, I will be at my booth Thursday and Friday. I will be drawing in the recruiting pavilion on Saturday, so that's where I'll be. So you can see me all 3 days.
Great. We'll see you there. Take care.
Hey guys, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.